Really excited to have you here with us to talk this morning first about driving change and accelerating results. We hear this a lot from organizations, big and small, across sectors, healthcare, high tech, defense, agriculture, banking, government. We want accelerated results. This means do more, usually do more with less, and now it's do more with less faster. But what do we know working in organizations? We know that what follows this statement is usually, but we aren't getting those results. We'll whisper to each other, we'll email, we'll share in frustrations over a social hour after the week, right? And we'll say why. And we'll try to brainstorm, figuring it out. We'll buy books, trying to understand, maybe this one has it in there. We're reading blogs, we're watching videos, we're saying, how can I find how to accelerate these results? Well, Shannon and I, as we were preparing for this event, thought there must be some solution out there. We said, well, let's troubleshoot the problem and understand how can we find what's underneath accelerating results and share that with folks. So the first question we asked is what powers the organization? What makes it move? Some people will say motivation, employee motivation. You need to have motivated employees, then you'll get accelerated results. Other people say no. It's leadership. You need to have strong leaders. If you have leadership, you'll accelerate results. Trust. Trust is another answer often given. Culture. If only we can set the culture right, then we'll get those results. All of these have a portion of truth in them. But as I researched, experimented, studied, and saw it, what I found is hiding behind all of these things is a concept we call driving change. And it's underneath all of this motivation, leadership, trust, culture. So what is driving change? Driving change is choosing change for yourself and clearing the obstacles for others to choose it too. It's seeing those results that you want as a great opportunity. A green mountain, like a hike you're looking forward to going on. And you're out in front and you're saying, I want to make this happen. Here's what I can do. Here's what I have in terms of my tools. And I'm willing to go first. And then you're turning around and you're saying, who's with me? Who'd like to go too? I look out in the audience, I see some of my friends. You've raised your hands with me before. There you go, they're raising their hands. Right? Who wants to go with me? This is driving change. Leaders who are implementing accelerated results, who are getting those results we're looking for, are doing this. You find them in the stories, you read about them in the news, they say, I chose to do this. And together with my company, with my organization, we went on this journey together. They use the language of driving change, but they don't necessarily call it that. Now, driving change is in sharp contrast, I've found, to the dominant operating principle in organizations, which is driving people. Oh, and by the way, these are my drawings. This is the best I can do. Yeah, thanks. But it's intentional, right? Every line here has a purpose. So driving people, using coercion or threats to compel people to change. We seek authority, right? If only they'll give me that leadership position, if only they'll make me the manager, if only they'll make me the PM, that program manager, then I can get those results. It's a lack of authority, that's my problem. And so we seek this whip. And the first thing we do is say, now, who needs to do something? and we send them an Outlook meeting invite, the grand whipping strategy of all corporations, right? Because it's funny, have to say, I think it's hilarious that Outlook has managed to make people office zombies. You just go wherever it tells you. So what, right? We use that. We use it, we send out the meeting invite, we invite people, we say, you must attend, mandatory. You show up to the first meeting, and they say, okay, here's your long laundry list of tasks, here are your due dates, and here's how I'm going to tell on you if you don't do it. This is what we do. We do this because other people have modeled it to us. But does it work for very long, if at all? No. We do it to others, but we hate it being done to us. So it's okay if I'm the one wielding the whip, but it's not okay if I'm that conscript in the front. And though we're trying to push our organizations forward with this as the force, it's not successful. And it's not successful because we quickly switch from saying this, if I want different results, I must change something. But if driving people is our operating principle, we quickly go, well, not change something, change somebody. If you would just behave differently, I could get the results I want. Has anybody had that conversation with their friends, right? If only they would listen to me, then we'd be successful. But it's not changing somebody that is the motive force of organizations that accelerate results. Organizations that accelerate results say, we need to change ourselves. We're not going to complain about our suppliers. We're not going to demand of our customers. We're going to say, what can we do where we're at with what we have to make a difference? And we add to bring them in, those suppliers, those customers, and help others join us. Now, some of you who have an Agile background in the audience might be seeing within this a slight shadow of the Agile Manifesto, right? I think you've got that card. You got that today. It says, by doing it and helping others do it. The Agile Manifesto is based on driving change. Choosing a change for ourselves and clearing the obstacles for others to choose it too. If you aren't doing this with a change you're working on, if you aren't driving change with a results demand you're seeking, chances are good shifting to that will immediately accelerate your results. And we're going to talk more about that. Now, we found the motive force, driving change. Now, what connects the parts of the organization to take this force through to those results? What we find in most organizations is that though they may at one time have been intentionally designed, strategically designed, they have since atrophied into a cobbled mess of, remember why we did that? No. Okay, let's keep doing it. You've had that conversation. And it becomes a bit like this. That we want flow through the intersections of the organization to those results. Instead, we're stopped. We're stopped at a light like this saying, go? Don't go? I'm not quite sure. And we decide, you know what I'll do? I'll turn that one light from red to green. That'll fix it. Has anybody been given that assignment before? I got that one, right? And what happens? You spend all your time, you turn that light from red to green, and no one moves, right? Because they say, well, yeah, but what about all the others? So what we find is organizations that are struggling to get accelerated results aren't dealing with the fact that their systems are based on lots of stops and goes, lots of rules and demands that are cobbled together over time, that no one knows why they're there. The alternative to this is to seek flow within boundaries, to strategically design your organization to get where you're hoping to go as fast as you're hoping to get there within the boundaries of what you can make possible. Now, those of you in the Intel audience, right, might have visited our Swindon location and have gone through this roundabout. Thank you to my colleague Alan Gladman for driving me through this roundabout just a few weeks ago. I did not drive through it. I rode. I am only so brave. Brave with keynoting, not with driving through the magic roundabout. But I appreciate its efficiency. And I appreciate the fact that it's intentionally designed to support that community's need for rapid transit flow. So it's not chaos. It's not one big open intersection with everybody just mashing through whenever they see fit. Now, this is an argument people make when you talk about relaxing restrictions in organizations. It's either the lights or chaos. That's not the case. There is an alternative. It is strategically designing your systems to provide flow in ways that work. Lots of small decisions within boundaries, within constraints, strategically designed to support that. There we go. But we know that we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. So to move to strategic design requires us to consider different ideas than those that we've been using to drive the old system. Hence, events like accelerated results are important. Because if you're going to re-examine why is it we work this way, we need to have some understanding of what's an alternative. I don't know about you, but I've been in plenty of meetings where people say, we should stop doing A. And you go, okay, what should we do instead? I don't know, just not that. Right? So in order to fill in that gap of if you know that A isn't working anymore, let's come up with options. Let's come up with solutions. This is the engineer in me. I get excited. You don't just leave the toaster broken and yell about toast. You fix the toaster. You get a new toaster. You decide you're changing your diet. Who knows? But you don't just keep yelling at the toaster. But we do that in organizations. We hold meetings after meetings to complain about the broken toaster. I find it fascinating. So we need different thinking if we want to create a different solution. And we go and we seek conferences, maybe events like this. We seek classes. And what we find in this case, and many of you probably have had this similar situation, is you go with high hopes only to find that the advice given in the forum is either too vague, like build trust. Well, how? I don't know, but it's important. Build it. Right? Some of you have been to that class, okay. The other is too specific. All right, well, improve flow. How? Only do Scrum exactly this way. Other people have been to that class. I know you have. Right? So too vague, too specific. So what we're talking about with strategic design is there is a middle, which is principled improvisation. Understanding principles underneath flows and mechanisms of organizational design. Understanding how you can engineer your system to get that flow towards accelerated results. And showing you how people have not only come up with those principles, but then implemented them. That's how you got the speaker list that you got for this event. Who out there has actually found the principles underneath the system and is leveraging those for results? I look out, I see some of our keynote speakers in the audience. I'm excited for you to get up here and share that message. Because that middle, that principled improvisation middle is too often missing, where it's actually implementable, tangible. That's what we're looking for in strategic design. Now, the third question, we've got what powers the organization. I'd argue driving change. And then we've got our strategic design for what connects the organization. So the next question is what enables the organization to adapt? Because we know locking down to today's situation, tomorrow it'll change. And many of you have struggled through when you fixed yesterday's problem only to learn that now today there's a whole new problem to fix, and have people say, no, we already changed that, you've got to wait 5 years, right? That was fantastic. She's like, no, you've hit my heart. That's my exact problem. So what enables us to adapt? Well, what I've found is some people say, I need to pick a way. A way. A way will help us adapt. So Company X is becoming a Concept A organization. Now, I left this vague on purpose because the company is irrelevant and the concept ends up being irrelevant. But this is the method most people, a lot of people, not all, but a lot of people use. We're going to become a Concept A organization. But when we look at organizations that accelerate their results, they do not pick this path. Instead, what they pick is to be Company X. We are who we are. Now, what's the best of the thinking that's out there that is specific and contextual to my problem? I want that. We don't go buying out all of Lowe's when all I need is to saw one board in half. We don't wait until we can afford to buy all of Lowe's and all of that equipment before we saw that first board. We say, what is my problem today? What do I need? How do I get that? And we build from there. But I can see where people get confused. Because organizations that do this, that say, bring me the best of the concepts that are out there, I will contextualize them for me and implement them, they get amazing results. So then they become emitters. After they've done this intentional implementation, they become emitters. And suddenly, Company X becomes Concept X. You could probably fill in at least one company that's done this. And now everybody goes, I want to be like Company X. We want to do it the Company X way. And some people get some results. But mostly the people who get some results are the ones who instead went back and customized the Company X way for them. So I can see where it gets confusing. But the success is in taking in a custom blend of methods, not in becoming a Concept A organization. Really key to remember. Hence we come to the Accelerate framework. It provides these 3 aspects that underlie successful acceleration of results: driving change, strategic design, and intentional implementation. But you don't have to just believe me up here on the stage talking about this to say, is this really right? I'm not asking for an argument to authority. April says it's right, therefore it's right. I intend to prove it to you. And 3 sets of proof. The first, historical examples. And I'll pull historical examples not where I'm trying to translate what they did through my lens, but instead I'm going to use their own words. So I've picked 2 organizations where the leaders of the organization wrote widely and deeply on what they did and why they did it. So we'll use their words as a test to say, is this what you meant? Entering into that conversation with them. The second is personal applications. If it works, I should be able to do it. So I'll tell you 2 stories where I've used the Accelerate framework. And the third is effectiveness at scale, which is how are we seeing this framework playing out globally within Intel as we spread this message. So the first test, 2 historical examples. I've chosen for my examples 2 organizations I've been proud to be a part of, and 2 leaders that have set the pace that I think all change agents should challenge themselves to live up to. So Admiral H.G. Rickover of the U.S. Nuclear Navy, and Andy Grove. So first, Admiral Rickover's story. So Rickover, as a captain, was assigned responsibility after he had fought for it and lobbied for it and set himself up for it to lead the launch of the U.S. Navy's nuclear power program. And he and the engineers he worked with in little more than 5 years went from founding the organization to delivering the USS Nautilus as a commissioned warship. 5 years to go from, we should have a reactor in a submarine, to a working reactor underway. Pretty impressive product development timeline, wouldn't you say? Amazing accelerated results. And we find underneath this accomplishment a volume of information about how Rickover strategically and intentionally designed every aspect of his program. Who was coming in, how the engineering should be set up, how the safety should be maintained. They were building it from scratch. There was no nuclear industry. There was no example to follow. And they charged forward into that future and accomplished this. He wrote widely, not wildly, no, I don't know. I've read a lot of his stuff, maybe a little wildly at times, but widely on ranging topics, even on thoughts of man's purpose. Because he thought it was important to have these conversations about what was happening in the organization, how he saw the flow of how people could put themselves forward and accomplish something. And he designed an organization to leverage the best out of people while appreciating the limitations. And we find that he was driving change throughout, though that's not what he called it. And it's even documented in simplest things as the Wikipedia article about him, where it says when the submarines would first go underway, he insisted on being on board. He was going to be there on that first test. His program, he was committed to being out in front and saying, who wants to go with me? And only those who are really passionate, committed, and capable got to go. Wonderful example of driving change, strategic design, and intentional implementation. And we've all benefited from the results that he and his program have created for over the past 60 years. Now, the second example, near and dear to an audience like this, is Andy Grove. And I've only recently joined Intel and recently learned of all of the things that Andy had done. And I've been fascinated by how much he left us in his writings to understand how he saw the organization and its potential. And not just its potential, but our potential. If you read his books, what's fascinating is he isn't writing for everybody, in the sense of he admits that he's trying to reach out to those in middle management who have the most challenging job, challenged with the demands of the employees from below and the requests and limitations of the demands from above. People in the past have sometimes called this middle the frozen middle. I don't think that's fair. I think the middle of our organizations are under compression from both sides. The challenges, it seems, have never been greater. But what Andy was reaching out to through his books was a way of unpacking that, of giving people strength and confidence to behave differently, to generate results. He says, most people don't do this, but we do this because we're Intel. And he was talking about driving change, strategic design, and intentional implementation. In high output management, the quote reads, how does a manager motivate his subordinates? For most of us, the world implies doing something to another person. But I don't think that can happen because motivation has to come from within somebody. Accordingly, all a manager can do is create an environment in which motivated people can flourish. Sounds like driving change to me. All I can do as a leader is go first and create the place where you can come to and be your best. Clear obstacles to join me. Clear obstacles to accomplish those better results. And as we leap forward, Do only the paranoid survive? The lesson is we all need to expose ourselves to the winds of change. As we throw ourselves into raw action, our senses and instincts will rapidly be honed again. Action, moving, going forward, trying new things. But not trying new things of let's just try something, we've got to act now. Why are you doing that? Engineering that example. Tell me the purpose. I hear many stories about, well, he liked the data. I believe he liked the data, but he probably also liked why you cared about that number in the first place. And I find that really interesting sometimes. That people are like, I don't know, it's just numbers. Data, data, data. Well, why? Why that data? Why not this data? Why not that data? I don't know. This is the data. We always bring this data. I think Andy was looking for that intentional experimentation to push forward because the results were out there. The possibility was out there. If only you'd go after it. Now, 2 personal applications. So I've had the privilege of working in this space for a very long time. And I've got 2 examples I want to share with you. The first comes from my time at the U.S. Navy shipyard in Bremerton, Washington. And the second is a personal example from out in my community. So in the first case, I had the opportunity to lead a group called the Guiding Coalition. And it's based on John Cotter's 8-step leading change model. Our goal was to make the strategic plan of the organization come alive through collecting volunteers from across the organization who wanted to get to make a difference, get to do additional work in support of accelerating results. Now, many people when we started said, no one will ever volunteer for more work. But what we found is there were many, many people who were willing to volunteer to make a difference. Please give me the opportunity, give me the freedom to make a difference. I've been looking for this. We'd have hundreds of applicants every year for our Guiding Coalition. We did amazing things. We got great results. We had a success rate that was phenomenal. And we got the attention of John Cotter himself. And when he came to see us for free in March of 2010, he allowed me to quote him, and so quote him I did. And what went out on the news wire that March from the Naval Sea Systems Command was this quote, and I'll paraphrase. He said only 15% of the organizations that he was seeing in the world at that time were trying to deal with the rate of change. And of that 15%, 14 of the 15 were struggling due to environment, culture. He said only 1% were succeeding at dealing with the rate of change, and he put us out there. They're doing what we were doing. Now, that was 6 years ago. And since then, Cotter has published Accelerate, which was based in part on what he learned from coming and seeing us. Powerful results. What were we doing? We were driving change. It was a requirement of the Guiding Coalition. You could not go out and demand somebody do your change. You had to say, here's what I would like to do. Would you like to partner with me? You had to be strategic in your design of what you were working on. You couldn't just go, well, I want people to be happier. I want people to be agile. I want people to follow this process. Who was going to follow it? When were they going to follow it? What were they going to do? We were specific. We called it concrete goals. And then you had to intentionally implement. You couldn't just say, well, we're just going to go try things. No, what is your experiment? How are you going to validate it? How are you going to amplify it? How are you going to dampen it? And with that framework underneath it, we were winning at the things we were trying to accomplish. And I share this story with you. We were getting amazing results. Cotter came to see us in March of 2010, but we weren't done. We were working with his model, driving change, and his model getting great results. But then I said, I bet we could go faster. So I went looking around through a friend who's actually in the audience. He introduced me to the concepts of Dave Snowden and complexity theory. And remember that chart, right? Organization X, we're going to pull in the best concepts of other places. We didn't say, well, we're doing Cotter's model. We can't do anybody else's work. We said, wow, Dave's got a really interesting thing over there with this Cynefin and complexity theory. Want to understand that. How can we implement that into the guiding coalition? So we implemented Snowden's model, and we shaved 3 months off of team start across 14 teams. Pretty good, huh? So what you find is if you're focusing on intentional implementation and not method purity, you start to find other opportunities that when you partner them, when you bolt them in, when you create that next feature that comes in, you can get even more amazing results. Now, if we take this out into the community, I'm going to talk to you about building a beyond accessible playground. Now, this is very personal for me. I was building this playground because my son, Theodore, who's now 8 years old, was born with spina bifida, which is a fairly common birth defect where his spine was open when he was born, and he's got challenges in his legs and other challenges. And he and his friends with similar conditions were struggling to play at our neighborhood playgrounds. If you have small children, maybe you've noticed there's a lot of barriers at playgrounds to play for children with special needs. And we decided we had an opportunity to do something. We knew about this Accelerate framework, and we said, we can leverage this. Let's see how this works in our community. So we went down, took a look at the playground, said, this isn't accessible. This isn't sufficient. We can make a difference. And actually, we used these pictures to tell the story to over 100 community groups about what we were hoping to accomplish. This is my friend's son, Gabriel, showing his challenges in playing with the playground. But we didn't go in and drive people. We didn't take this picture down to the city and say, there is an Americans with Disabilities Act which requires you to upgrade playgrounds, and we demand that you upgrade this playground for Gabe. Harumph, harumph, harumph. Some of you serve in city governments. You've met this citizen, right? Harumph. They're there at every meeting to complain to you about what you're not doing for them, right? But we knew about driving change. So we said, no, what we're going to do is we're going to go in and say, hello, Parks Commissioner. I'd like to partner with you because we believe we can build an accessible playground. Will you join us? And they said yes. And we launched Bremerton Beyond Accessible Play. This picture was taken at our 2nd anniversary when we had brought in together the mayor, the city council members, the parks commissioners, local community groups, the Rotarians, the Kiwanis, the Lions. There weren't tigers and bears, but you can say, oh my, right? And we were making a difference. We were raising money fast. We were getting every dollar we asked for on grant applications. And we kept partnering. We designed the playground, partnering mothers who understood what their children needed with fantastic playground designers who could help us bring our ideas to life. We brought together community volunteers on a 90-degree day that wasn't in April, it was actually in July. Right? We're having quite a heat wave today. 90-degree day in July. All the community volunteers came out to help us build this playground for the children. And we opened it in August of 2014 to the love and admiration of at least 2 little boys, my Theodore and my friend Rebecca's son, Gabe. And it's fascinating because you learn a lot of things as you intentionally implement and strategically design projects like this. We learned that if you remove the barrier between the walkway and the surfacing of a playground, you can get adults to play on a playground. Apparently, it's a barrier keeping them out too. And we learned that you can measure the success of a playground by how often the parks crew has to freshen the restrooms. It was 2 times a week before we opened the playground. After we opened it, it was twice a day. And even to this day, it warms warms my heart. I get messages on Facebook. My friends post pictures and they say, April, we're off to play at your playground. And I'm thrilled. They see their children's smiling faces and know we got to make this happen in our community. This is the only accessible playground within 45 minutes of this location. So an amazing support for the children in the community, and it's challenging and exciting for all, so all can play. These are the results that I've been able to achieve with the Accelerate framework. And then, to my son's sadness, just a few short months after opening the playground, we moved down to Oregon so I could join Intel. My daughter intends to build him another playground down here. She's 11. I think she'll get it done soon. That's another test, right? Can I get an 11-year-old to use the Accelerate framework to build a playground? I think we're on a good track. We'll see how it goes. But the next examples I want to share with you are testing the Accelerate framework at scale, which is, I've heard this saying after I joined Intel, well, it works on my machine, right? So we're going to see if it works on other people's machines. Can you use this like I've been able to use this? And so far, the first tests are pretty successful. I've had the lucky opportunity to travel around the world this year. I actually circumnavigated the globe. I went from here to Poland, on to Malaysia to see my good friends, and back. Neat little accomplishment. I'm technically one day younger than I am. I'm going to ride that one as long as possible. You're 40. No, I'm not. One day short. But it's fantastic. What we're finding is that across cultures, globally, people are adopting driving change, intentional implementation, strategic design, and advancing their goals. Just this last week, heard a story out of the Agile Guiding Coalition about one of the team members that's decided to adopt driving change. Was trying to implement Agile with a group of people, was struggling because they just wouldn't listen. It wasn't making sense. He watched the videos, we talked about it within the Guiding Coalition, and he said, okay, I'm going to try this driving change thing instead. So rather than going in and telling the team what they weren't doing, he says, well, they're doing iterative design. Maybe what I could help them with is technical practices. Goes back to the team and says, hey, you guys are doing great there. Do you mind trying this stuff? And the team says, yeah, that sounds good. Win. How great is that? That we're already seeing movements and successes with simple things like, I'm going to stop yelling at you and start saying, hey, would you like to partner with me on this? Some of you might not be believing that it can be as simple as that, to shift the flow of the results you've been seeking for so long. But I can tell you it is. It is. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. This time, when I send them that mandatory meeting, they're going to listen. This time, when we do that reorg and I get that new position title, then I'll finally have the authority all lined up. This time, it'll be different. If this time you aren't different, it won't be different. If this time you aren't different, it won't be different. We offer you today and throughout this event the Accelerate framework as a way of structuring what's possible. If you choose to drive change, if you choose to focus not on how is everything because that's the way we've always done it, but how should it be, how could it be to generate that flow? If you focus on intentional implementation versus conformance to some method or standard, you can achieve accelerated results. And you don't need a new job title. You don't need more authority. You don't need anybody else to change. You just choose to change and do what you can with what you have where you are. Back in 1961, Jay Forrester said, "The corporation has a challenge to improve the effective use of middle management and technical personnel. I would put this lifetime effectiveness as low as a tenth of the maximum possible. Certainly a manifold increase in a 10% effectiveness is possible." Those of you who've accomplished successful implementations of various custom blends of methods that worked in your context have seen what is possible when you drive change. Have seen what is possible when you strategically design the organization to flow the value you want to flow. Have seen what's possible when you implement what works for you, not what somebody at some conference, at some event, in some book told you you should do. The custom blend that's right for you. Now, you might be saying, okay, maybe I'm willing to go try something, but how's this going to work when I try something different and everybody else is doing the same old way? Well, I'll admit to you, improvement is doubly difficult when individual habit is reinforced by group inertia. If you try to go out and be different and everyone else is the same, you will feel sucked back. But do it anyway. Surround yourself with people who understand what you're trying to do and support you. You've intentionally been put into a cohort so you can surround yourself with people who understand what you're trying to do and support you. Because improvement can be doubly beneficial when you are surrounded by people who believe in you and can help you be successful. Theodore's taught me a lot. He's taught me that I can set a new normal. That what we expect in life is not necessarily how it goes, and yet the difference can be made beautiful and glorious if you see it as an opportunity to set a new normal standard for yourself and for others. The children in my old community will never know a time when they weren't included in play. People that you work with coming in new to the company might never have to remember a time when people were driven, but instead when everyone was driving change. Or even just in your little area, can you make that happen? Can you set a new normal where you work, where this is possible? I know you can. And I'm an engineer. I'm an engineering mechanics major. I love fracture, fatigue, failure, elastic deformation, plastic deformation. So this is where my mind goes. So I've intentionally designed this keynote and this event to challenge you to move through that elastic deformation space of, this is all interesting, but I'm going to go back to work and be exactly the same. Please don't do that. My goal is to move you through that elastic range up into that plastic deformation where you're never quite going to be the same again. When you go out and you say, I'm going to issue that mandatory meeting, I'm going to demand everybody be there, you're going to at least feel a little bad when you hit send. Right? So you're going to go, I bet this isn't going to work as well. Optional. Please join me. I'd love to have you there. You'll get used to it. Just try it. You'll be in that new normal range. And I love this quote. I love this quote. Do not be encumbered by history. Go off and do something wonderful. Intel was designed to accelerate the world. So we should never hear that's the way we've always done it. We were encouraged to not be encumbered by history, to go off and do something wonderful. And I think we deserve to repeat this to everybody around us all the time. History can teach us. We can take the best of it with us, but we should never be encumbered by it and have it ruin our future. because that's the way we've always done it. We are setting the clock of the world. We can run faster than that, if only we'll try. So that's your challenge. Why not try? You will never know if it's possible, if it works, the results you could have gotten if you stay stuck where you've always been. If you have an obstacle to moving forward, if you have a challenge in the thinking you can't get over, whatever that is, we're here for you to support you. Your cohorts, this community, those of us who are excited to deliver events like this to you. We believe in your potential. We believe in the organization's potential. We believe in the potential to make an amazing and powerful difference, if only we'll try. Thank you.